Good evening. Welcome to Siddha-Vetha webinar series. Today we have two speakers on two different topics. The first speaker is Surabhi Karthic. Her title is on clouded reality of modern milk consumption. Surabhi is a senior at Williams B. Travis High School, Houston in Texas. She grew up in a spiritually inclined family in New Jersey and Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. Brought up reading the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas through I believe it is the Sringeri Vidya Bharati Foundation and OICA, the Youth Career Accelerator, reignited her love and passion for Vedic sciences and allowed her to deepen the Siddha knowledge. She completed the youth career in 2019 June, followed by an opportunity to present at recent FETNA conference. It's a big conference in Chicago. She's currently a junior research fellow at Siddha-Vetha Center for Transdisciplinary Studies. And speaker number two is Mogan Priya Raman, which I will introduce here after we finish this talk. So the first speaker on the title Clouded Reality of Modern Milk Consumption, Surabhi, please.
Karthic. Thank you, Dr. Sean, for the introduction. So my topic that I did a research on was the clouded reality of modern milk consumption. So to give a little background, I just wanted to, my whole goal in this was to present research based truth facts about the overhyped concept of milk and other dairy-based products to support well-being. So right now in our society, there's a lot of misconceptions about how milk is supposed to be helping us, when really it is a lot more damaging towards our health. And I'll go into those reasons later. But so basically, some background about this: dairy has been marketed as the only source of calcium intake available in society, and that causes a really big issue because dairy is not the only source of calcium that we can have. There's a lot of other ways of getting calcium, and there's a 7-step process where everything we eat turns eventually from fat, and then it transforms into bone and bone marrow. So regardless of what we eat, everything turns into calcium. And there's a big overhype and excessive marketing of non-fact-based concepts of calcium requirement. And so if you ever go to the doctor, they'll always tell you you need this much of milk. But in reality, there's so many other ways to get calcium. And somatic cells are these cells that exist within our blood and our pus. Anything that we might have that involves blood or pus, those exist. And there is a legal amount that is allowed in milk. And science and research demonstrates that the amount of somatic cells in modern day milk is 1,120,000 in just one spoonful of milk. So basically, everything that we're taking in is just toxins. And the law permits 750 million cells in 1 liter because it is caused by mastitis, which is this disease that happens in cows that produce milk. And it's because when you keep artificially inseminating a cow, you tox out its entire body system. And it eventually causes a lot of diseases and contracts all these diseases into the milk. And so basically all the milk we drink is just toxins. And barbaric living circumstances on dairy farms is just really cruel at this point because at the moment, as we know, factory farming is probably one of the most cruel and abusive systems, which causes a lot of physical, mental, and emotional abuse towards those animals because they're brought up from birth and eventually they know that their fate is to be slaughtered, which can affect the milk psychologically. And effects of consuming such diseased dairy and meat products is very substantial, because the more and more you consume these products, the more and more you're ingesting so many different diseases, no matter how many times you filter through the milk filtration process. So any food that we consume is reflected in our thoughts immediately, then it's in our words, and then our action. So that's something we have to be very careful of. There are other alternatives for milk or for need of calcium. There is process of calcium production in human body. So everything, like I mentioned before, there's a 7-step process, and everything we eat does turn into calcium at one point. So there is no scientific reason that we do need milk to survive. And there are many available options in modern day. There's a lot of Siddha ghees out there, or like milk that comes from farms that do not slaughter their animals. And farms that protect their animals, or sanctuaries per se, those cows they get rescued rather than being slaughtered, and it makes a big difference in the milk, and it'll be less toxic, because when the cows are about to be slaughtered, they eventually release many hundreds of toxins into the milk. So when we get the milk, no matter how much we filter it, it is still toxic milk. And it does tie into the fact that a vegan lifestyle is really good for this kind of situation, because even though it's hard to go vegan, it is a lot more healthy, so that you're not consuming so much negative toxins. You can always get sattvic milk and dairy products from these farms, or you can order them online. And there are nutritional components in plant-based diet. So rather than getting calcium in just milk, there are plant-based diets in a vegetarian diet that can be transformed into milk. So I did an experimental study with the help of Dr. Shan, and I basically asked him, he's a therapist, I believe, and what he had done was he had a couple of patients who came in with varying problems, and some of these problems included like high BP, abdominal disorders, and chronic ailments, and so on. And he did something called an elimination diet, so that he just asked them to remove milk from their diet for about 48 days. And there were significant results. And for one of the things, I think their cholesterol, blood pressure, weight, and BMI had all reduced significantly. And they were all back to normal, or were on the way to a healthy lifestyle. And it shows that even though they had things like abdominal disorders and psychological disorders and surgical, so some people have been paralyzed from the waist below, but slowly it does help from the inside if you use a sattvic ghee rather than depending on a regular milk, because the negative energy in that milk is going to just aggravate the issue that we're talking about. And in the milk, we are prone to a lot of different negative risks, and some of these are our dairy products are mostly genetically modified. So these animals are basically constantly artificially inseminated and constantly abused, or ingested with a bunch of chemicals that will reflect in our milk. Again, it also causes a lot of diseases in the cow because of the living conditions that we have in America today. Some of these diseases include mad cow disease, brucellosis or Bang's disease, salmonella virus, and infectious mastitis, which is just infected pus in the milk, which is what we were talking about before, and leptospirosis, which is milk fever. So these different diseases can really, really affect a human body as well. For example, there was a situation in, I think, 2012 around the world where there was a big outbreak of mad cow disease. And mad cow disease, what it does is basically it affects these psychological development of a cow. and it eventually makes them go crazy, and they end up dying off. And if there's one cow in a herd, the entire herd falls sick. So it's really important to separate that cow from the herd as soon as possible. But that disease does spread really, really fast, and because of which it kills a bunch of these cows. So there was a situation where there were about 20,000 cows just getting killed. They all was just dying, and they didn't know what to do with the bodies, because these cows cannot be ingested by our society because it's too harmful. So they decided to burn these bodies, burn all the bodies of the cows, and eventually put it back into the same diet that's fed to the cows that are still alive. So over time, it's just been an endless cycle of them ingesting mad cow disease, and they do die off, not all of them because of mad cow disease, but that little bit of mad cow disease that was present back then is still there in the milk that we consume today. So it is really, really toxic for our health. And I think it's really hard for people to understand that now, just because we depend so much on milk. But milk has 135 million pus cells, bovine growth hormones, antibiotics, feces, 51 milligrams of cholesterol, 300 calories, 16 grams of fat, acidic protein, which leaches calcium from bones. So milk is supposed to give us calcium, but instead it really does take away a lot of the calcium, and it causes a lot of problems. So the best thing is to get rid of milk for just 1 week. Try it out and just get rid of milk for 1 week in your diet, and replace it with some alternative like coconut milk, almond milk, or sattvic ghee, and just try to see the difference in your energy levels, in your thinking processes, because your mind does become a lot clearer once you stop drinking milk that does have a lot of toxins in it. So in the elimination diet, it was 20 plus patients with varying chronic diseases, and we just replaced their milk with Siddha-Vetha ghee. And so there were frequent checks to make sure that how the progress was going. And so there was significant reduction in their pain. There was an increase in their energy levels, and enhanced emotional balance and continued healthy lifestyle. So they felt more emotionally open rather than feeling so closed and trapped. And they did move on to a much healthier lifestyle. And now I think a lot of them have cut out milk from their diet for good. So I would just say that try to wonder next time you do drink milk, try to think of the negative effects it can have on us, because it doesn't matter whether it's A1 milk or A2 milk. There is no difference if it has this many diseases inside of it, because it eventually is just going to harm us and harm the environment that we're in, because this is the same milk that a lot of other people consume as well. And whether we realize it or not just the milk, but if we do consume meat, people that do consume meat are also consuming a lot higher intake of these same diseases. So my whole conclusion for this whole project was to bring awareness of the risks of modern day milk consumption, because it is a lot more dangerous than we see it, and to show that there are alternative options in the market that are not dairy based. So there's different products and different companies that will have these different options. So there is no reason to depend on just dairy for calcium, and to conserve our natural resources, because right now at the rate we're going, we are about to, by 2050, we are supposed to, all the animals on Earth are supposed to be extinct because of how much we're abusing our environment and how much we do kill them. And their population is declining really, really fast. And we have to do something about that. And I know it's hard to go and save the cows from getting slaughtered, but at least if we cut down on milk consumption, it cuts down on at least one part of the industry that does cause a lot of harm to us and the cows. If you already didn't know, the cows do go through a lot of traumatizing experiences when they are on the slaughter farm. And it's it's a way of reducing as much as we can possibly, so that we can conserve our resources and our health for a better tomorrow. So I'll take any questions now.
Hello.
Hi.
I do have a comment. Thank you for the talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree. Like, I've studied classical Ayurveda for some time, and also modern medicine. And indeed, it does seem maybe a plant-based diet is best. One thing is, ancient times, they had their own cows, and they brought the milk, the diet of the cow, and they had fresh milk that was unpasteurized and so forth. In that case, still, maybe it's not good, since at least with modern studies, I think milk consumption does not decrease rates of osteoporosis and hip fracture and so forth. So if ancients used milk, maybe it was for some other reason, like B12 or iodine. I'm still not sure what it is. But so far, I can't see any reason why milk is helpful. The sources of calcium, which you might not know of, it's like other animals, they get their calcium from green leaves. And indeed, that is truly the highest source of calcium. I think there have been there are studies of bone discoveries from ancient peoples. We find fossils and so forth, and some people have said daily calcium intakes could be something like 2,000 milligrams. And that is definitely possible. Like, for instance, of the common vegetables, things like bitter melon, methi, moringa, their calcium levels are not bad. But we used to pick our own vegetables, and a lot of the vegetables mentioned in classical Ayurveda and the ones that are still used in Siddha medicine that Sean will know of, those have much more calcium. Like, we even do not eat the very bitter vegetables that we used to, and that is the best source.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely true. And going along the lines of having the grass-based energy, these cows the cows that do have a hump, the Brahmin species of cows, they actually do have something called a Surya Ketu Nadi, which is basically their way of getting calcium, because a lot of these herbivores they only get milk for the first couple days, maybe weeks of their lives from their mother, after which, they survive completely on their own on plants. And they still get energy from plants, and they also get this energy and calcium from the sun. So I think that's another reason why we have things like Surya Namaskar, which is like the sun salutation, because whether we realize it or not, just eating plant-based diets or even harnessing energy from the sun is really like possible to bring more calcium into our body.
Yes, I think yes, the sun does help absorption, and I think it also it produces some other chemical. I forget what it was, but yeah, sun is important, and green leaves for sure. Mm-hmm. Preferably the traditional ones, if you live in a place where you can find them.
Yes, definitely.
So yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any one more question?
Hi, this is Shilpa here. I have a question for you. I was not clear about one point while you were explaining. You said that cows undergo a severe stress, or they release a lot of toxins when they are slaughtered, but will the milking process not be done much before that? So how does that impact How will the slaughtering have an impact on the milk?
These cows are put onto these factory farms to begin with. They are put in a really severe and harsh condition to live in and be raised in. And from the videos and like the research I have done, it is a lot of abuse towards these animals, which affects them psychologically and like mentally, which does release toxins into the milk, even when they're milking the cows. And yes, some cows that get slaughtered don't produce milk, but in the case that they do get slaughtered, they know that they're on a factory farm for a reason, whether we realize it or not. Cows are one of the smartest organisms among us, and they're really intelligent creatures, and they have like a sense, they have a sixth sense of knowing certain things, and they know when they're on a farm for a reason. Whereas if it's on a sanctuary, they know that they're safe and they know that they're protected and no one's going to hurt them. Whereas if you go to a factory farm and you go near a cow, they won't ever approach you because they're so scared of humans and human interaction because of how much traumatic stress they've gone through. And this stress will eventually reflect in the milk that we drink today. And not just the milk, but milk does transform into everything, like milk, like from yogurt and cheese and everything. So basically everything we do consume that is produced on a slaughter farm usually does have these toxins and these diseases in it, even though they are milked prior to their death.
I have a comment here. Our ancient food are millets. So rice and wheat, they all came in the modern trend. And in the millets, the ragi millet, I don't know, it's called the finger millet in English, and that is a rich source of calcium. So including ragi or the finger millet in our food every day, we can get the maximum source of calcium from it. And also I happened to go to a dairy farm with my child a couple of years back. There I got to know that once the calf is born, the calf is separated from the mother the very next day. And even the cows are not the cows are not in a free environment. The the place where the shed or something, the cows are crowded, and I can see the horns are cut off. And I asked them, what's the reason to cut off the horns? They said, like, as the cows are in a closed environment, they might hurt each other. So he sounded as if he is doing something good for the cow, but actually it's not. As soon as the calf is born, on the third or fourth day or something, they burn the horns, it seems. So that itself will scare the young cow, the young calf, and of course, that will have an impact in its DNA, as it is grown up in a very scared and a very dark environment. And yes, the product of the cow, the milk, it should really reflect what the cow's instinct was.
Yes, that's definitely true, because in today's factory farming system, cows are a certain height and a certain weight and length, and they are only given that much of room. They aren't given enough sufficient room to go on like pastures and graze. And if they are, they're only given about 5 to 10 minutes a day. And it's not healthy for these cows either, because like she said, these calves do get separated from their mothers at a very young age, and that puts them through a lot of stress as a child. And as they grow up with that traumatic experience of not knowing who their mother is, not having their mother by their side, and it causes a lot of malnutrition in the cows as well. There are cases where these calves do not grow as rapidly as they are expected to because of them being separated so quickly and being treated so harshly among everyone, that they end up becoming really malnourished. And these cows can only be basically slaughtered. So the moment they realize that this cow isn't going to survive, they usually take it to the slaughterhouse. And the way that this factory farming system works is very harsh and inhumane in its ways. And there are numerous research videos on like PETA and so on, other different websites that you can go watch about this topic, because it is a really important topic that we do try to save our cows, because cows are something that we have preserved for centuries together. In in our studies and our sciences, we try our best to preserve our cows, because we know how much of an impact they do have on our economy. They are the base of our economy. So just by cutting down on our milk, we can prevent a lot of these cows from facing so much harm.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. So uh I agree with you, like it's like the cows, like the milk, about everything, and I'm a vegan because of that too. So but are there any like research papers on how how the cows that are going to this, how the cows milk in modern day, like milk consumption, how it's bad for like how it's toxic for a human's body? Because like the sooner people understand this, the sooner they'll stop like drinking milk and eating milk products. So
Yes.
are there any research articles?
Um, I will be publishing one soon with Dr. Shen's help, hopefully. I will try my best to do one, but there are other numerous ones online that you can find about it and the negative effects milk does have on us. But those are not circulated in media as much as they should be, because of society today. They want to highlight the the meat industry, the dairy industry, but they don't want to ever educate the humans on the real issues that we're facing in society. So I feel like that's just an issue with society as a whole today, and that's something we can all take a like educational step, and like everyone just start like posting these articles. If we can research and start writing these opinions on different blogs, we can get the attention of the media and eventually try to get this to be a bigger matter in society, so that people do realize that what we have today is really, really harmful for us, and it's not going to help us or anyone else in the future. Because one, we are depleting our resources really, really fast, and two, we are ruining our own health, whether we realize it or not.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Disha and I have a question for you.
Desha, before you join, I have two people who in the queue who raised their hand before, Shweta,
Okay,
and then another person. So we'll give you a chance.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
please, Shweta.
Hi, thank you so much for your research and sharing. I joined the call late, so I'm not sure if I missed if you shared this part. I understand your presentation about a lot of the kind of negative effects of it. I'm curious if a lot of what you were sharing was focused on calcium, which is a very kind of Western-based concept. And I'm wondering, because, as an Ayurvedic practitioner, a lot of my clients have gone from lactose tolerant to not being lactose tolerant because and they've benefited from the immense, deep benefits of milk that the Shastras indicate beyond, quote unquote, calcium that milk provides. And so I'm wondering if you researched the other benefits of milk, and number two, especially in this day and age, how to use milk and how to cook it to actually make it beneficial versus just kind of focusing a lot on the negative effects of it. And number three, I was wondering if you explored to me, like almond milk and all that, they're not real milks. I call them nut juices. So when I share it when I'm teaching or sharing in different ways, I really debunk the myth, because to me it's quite a marketing tactic to say, like, a lot of these nut milks, quote unquote, are not really milk in the sense, the essence of what it's supposed to do for us. And so I'm just curious if you explored other types of animal milks and its benefits. But I feel especially more important, people lack the knowledge on how to use milk and how to cook it to get its benefits versus them getting the negative effects of it. Does that make sense?
You're muted, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for your first question about the benefits of milk, I do think that there are a lot of benefits that have been proven by science and by our old Vedic scriptures, but those are all, again, like I think Mr. Gary mentioned, those are all from ancient milk. How we had farms and cows that we like had on our personal farms that we raised, that were not sent to slaughterhouses or factory farm situations where they were kept so tight and clustered and tortured, basically. And I think that milk is very, very different than the milk we have today, because the milk we have today um, is more abusive towards the animals, and that reflects again in the milk. Um, and whereas the Vedic milk that we're talking about, milk does have a lot of benefits, but only when it is produced in the right environment, in the right time. Because if you milk a cow from its from its young age, and you let it grow old, and you cause it to basically form so many diseases within itself, it really does no good for us, really. And for your second question, I forgot what it was actually. Would you mind repeating it?
Sure, it's about the method of using it. Because in the larger picture, anything is nectar or poison, right? And so we have to learn how to use the item to make it, either poisonous or medicinal for whatever your goal or purpose is in the current modern setting. So I understand how you're saying, yes, obviously in this day and age and current times, it's a different quality. But if we use our intellect and everything, we can do things with the current state of the milk to make it a bit more beneficial for our chemistry, our chemical reactions in our mind and body and beyond.
Yes, we can. And there are things about that out there, and it does show that we can make it beneficial just by boiling milk. For example, if you get the milk, the regular milk that we buy in gallons, rather than drinking it just out of the can, because we do know that the way it's been processed could be different, could not be safe, we don't know. But for us personally, in our house, we always boil the milk for like 30 minutes before we drink the milk, and then we put it back into a container, so that we do try to get rid of as much of the negativity as much as possible for us. I think that boiling is one method, and then there's several methods that I'm still yet to do research on. And for your third question about the different alternatives, there are different animal alternatives like goat milk and so on, but I still think I'm still yet to do research on that as well. I think I will be getting deeper into the topic and researching.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to add on to what you're talking about when it comes to poisoning. So there is a level of poisoning in a physical level and then ethereal level. So there are two poisons happen. Ama is a two-level poisoning. Ethereal level poisoning is what is called karma. This cannot be removed through chemical processing. A deed is a deed. When it comes to chemical processing and other things, you can remove them through certain processes. So all these processes involved, what we are doing, can be done for that, for the physical, but not to the ethereal. So ethereal is important because ethereal goes even deeper. It goes into the 7 layers of our koshas, and it affects generations together. So as a whole, we need to be conscious, not just because we're eating something and we want to change this. The society has to, it's a societal karma. We all share. It's our responsibility to protect the cows, like how we did in Vedic culture, so that we call the cows as mothers. And when you do that, It's like raising a baby. So which kid, you have to raise your kid just now when you're young. So your character is becoming your baby. It's the same thing with the milk. Whatever goes in will come out, and suddenly you cannot change the baby. By any process, can you change your baby by giving him the right direction? You could, but not the way when you're brought up in a different way. It's very different. So there is definitely something that we need to really take care of in the society. So I just want to add on this, and I think we're late. We'll go for the second speaker, I think, and we will continue with this. So thank you so much, Surabhi. This is a wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much.